Good morning. Welcome back to the Retire Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host, and with me, my guest, Philip Shelton. Now, GOT LTCI is your company, and your website is
www.gotltci.com. It's like got milk. I thought that would be so easy, but I keep having to spell it out. gotltci.com.
There we go. So on your screen, you'll see it, gotltci.com. So if you'd like to check out Phyllis's website, again, her book is another I would recommend, Protecting Your Family with Long-Term Care Insurance. And there are other strategies we're going to talk about how to cover long-term care costs. So let's talk about, Phyllis, you said as far as filing a claim, or we know, for instance, with health care insurance, that's not going to cover your long-term care costs. Same thing with Medicare. There are limitations in terms of, very, very strict limitations in terms of what kind of coverage you get there. And then Medicaid, of course, when that kicks in, now you're at the, you've completely exhausted any other resources for that to even be a factor.
Unless you have a long-term care partnership policy.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
So let's talk about how to get a claim paid. And this is federally controlled since 1997. So regardless of which company you go with, right? So people can need care physically or mentally. And mentally, we all think Alzheimer's, but it could be a head injury for a 35-year-old. It could be a brain tumor, okay? The physical would be you're expected to need help with at least 2 of the basic 6 daily living activities. And think about it, we take a bath, we get dressed, we move from point A to point B, we go to the bathroom, we eat. So if you're expected to need help with 2 of those, at least 2, for at least 90 days. Now that's very important. That qualifies for a claim to be paid under long-term care insurance. So you could be 45 and have a stroke. You could be hit by a drunk driver, break both legs, your hip, and need help 6 or 7 months and get better. That's still a long-term care insurance claim, okay? So here's where health insurance and Medicare, if something happens, stroke, accident, you go to the hospital. We all know they want you out of the hospital, and you go to a rehab center. Well, that rehab center is a skilled nursing facility in the eyes of insurance. So you might get paid a month or 2. Medicare can go out as far as 100 days in that center. Might go home and have visits. We're talking 1 hour. They don't hang out with you all day. Maybe a bath visit, physical therapy, but generally it's in that first 3 months. And after that, you're on your own, meaning you use your own money, you have some type of insurance, or you go on Medicaid, which means as a couple spending down everything, the maximum is like $124,000 this year. Unless you have this magic thing called a long-term care partnership policy, which says you buy a policy approved by your state with inflation coverage if you're under 76. You use your insurance first. If it's not enough, you can turn to Medicaid, and you get to keep your savings equal to the benefits paid out, no limit. So if the policy paid out $800,000, $1 million, whatever, that's that much of your own money you can keep.
So it's like insurance to protect your assets, because not only is that going to pay that, let's say, $500,000 in benefits, but then it's going to shelter an additional $500,000 in benefits, and you're that much, at least for that, let's say if it's for a couple, this is extremely important, of course, because then that community spouse, that spouse that's at home, that's not in a facility, they're now going to be able to be better taken care of.
That's right, and often, I mean, people's assets are there to generate income for them to live on, especially the healthy spouse. So you don't want to pull that money away from her, but now when the person does get on Medicaid, they may have to change venue. They may not be in the country club assisted living facility anymore, but it makes Medicaid a backstop, a safety net, instead of payer of first resort.
But in reality, on someone that's in a nursing home, okay, so if they're going into assisted living, average stay there is going to be longer, let's say, than that in a nursing home.
You know, that is such an important point. The assisted living, when I got into the business, didn't even exist.
Right.
Okay. So now we have these country club places. You know, we've all seen them.
Sure.
Look, they cook for you, they clean for you, they do your laundry, there's no yard work, and you might meet a cute guy or a cute girl, you know? And I always say if you have dementia, you won't even know their fault. So how happy is that? But it's interesting because I really target, because most people are never in a nursing home.
Right.
I target the assisted living for the cost. And let me caution our readers, there's a lot of long-term care cost studies online.
Right.
Okay. Whatever the cost of the assisted living facility is, you need to add about $1,500 to it to make it the country club.
Sure.
Right? And then I use 5% compound because people love these places and they are making the claims last longer.
Right.
And so like in 30 years, let's say the cost was $6,000 a month today, then you're looking at about, you know, well, 5% compound, a number doubles every 15 years.
Right.
So you're looking at about $25,000 a month.
This is one of the things when we're looking today, okay, and you may be someone who has a parent at home that you're, you know, or a parent that you're needing to take care of, okay, that may be approaching these. Or it could be you're thinking in terms of planning for your own, whichever it is, understanding these costs and how inflation works. Remember when we talk about, each week I talk about CPI or CPIU and how inflation works and how we have to invest to stay ahead of inflation and taxes. Well, when you look at the government number for that, which is less than 3%, somewhere in the 2 to 2.5% range per year, one of the problems with that is when you look at, as I mentioned earlier, with healthcare costs, prescription costs went up 8% last year. That's what, 3 times the rate of inflation? Healthcare costs at the rate that they're going up, it's the same thing, maybe double that of the rate of inflation. And now healthcare, when we're talking about long-term care, it's the same thing. It's going up in multiples of what typically for inflation. So from a planning perspective, we have to look at that a little differently when we're looking at inflation and the effect of that on your savings over time. So one of the things when it comes to planning and understanding how long someone's assisted living costs, Medicare costs, whether you're talking about over the next 10 years, the next 20, or the next 30 years, understanding how fast that's going to go up, whether you have inflation rate or on a policy, how you also treat your investments, right? How you got to make sure that that's part of the overall planning, that we've got that factored in. And the more you make on your money, of course, the more you're going to be able to cover those kind of things. So here's something to keep in mind. I want to make this easy for you. Long-term care is something that, again, is very much for the individual. Some have a family history. Some have health issues already. You can see a little bit more of what your risk level is compared to others. One of the things that we do with the comprehensive plan we do each week, so again, for the first 10 callers, I'm going to throw it out again, for the first 10 callers to my office, 615-376-5325, guess what? Part of that comprehensive plan is factoring in the cost of long-term care, what the risks are there, what resources you have to cover that. If you need long-term care insurance, how much, and how much, not only how much it's going to cost, but how much insurance do you actually need? You don't have to buy something that's going to cover 100% of the cost. There are other resources to help offset that. And it's different if you're single and if you're a couple, how those costs need to be managed. And we're going to talk about spend down in a minute. But again, first 10 callers, if you'd like to get an analysis, this again for your retirement income analysis, comprehensive plan, including long-term care, be one of the first 10 callers to my office, 615-376-5325. Tess is standing by. She'll get your information. She'll send you out a checklist of things to bring to your appointment with me, and we will do up a comprehensive plan at no charge to you. All right, 615-376-5325 if you're one of the first 10 callers. Again, if you've seen it today, if you've seen it over the weekend, give us a call. We have someone standing by. Tess will take your calls over the weekend as well. There it is, 615-376-5325. And when you come in to see me, I will give you a free copy of my book, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom in Retirement. And in addition to that, for this week, Phyllis has been very gracious and generous to offer us up her booklet, ABCs of Long-Term Care Insurance. We'll also have that for you when you come in, okay?
Let me just plug my big book for a minute.
Yes, throw the big book.
The big book is fun
Look, we
because
have two.
it's big print and it's third grade vocabulary. Well,
Right.
actually, let me rephrase. East Tennessee vocabulary, okay? And there's a lot of pictures, my four-legged children. It's very personal.
And I like this that you have, Phyllis, on the inside.
Yeah.
Okay, you should. Why don't we show that real quick
Okay.
too? This is a on the inside cover. We've got 2017. Phyllis has got 2017 updates, and this includes. I don't know if we can get a close-up of that by any chance, or if not. But basically, this gives you all the numbers of what about long-term care. So self-employed, long-term care insurance deductions, talks about tax benefits, talks about spend down. So let's get into this part. All right, so we talked about health care costs. You got health insurance and you're thinking you're covered, you're not covered. You got Medicare, you're thinking you're covered, you're not covered.
Right.
There are a lot of steps. One, you're 3 days in a hospital. Two, you got to go, if you go in, you maybe get 20 days without a worry. After that, you have to, there's certain assessments that are occurring for it to go out to a maximum then even of 100 days if you meet the criteria necessary to keep that coverage going. So understanding Medicare is not going to be it. And next comes Medicaid, and we're going to get into that when we come back. So I want you to understand about Medicaid, how it works, and we're going to talk about spin down, all right, in Medicaid, and how, again, getting ahead of that, just like anything in planning, right? The more in advance we plan, the better options we have. The more options we have, the less costly it is.
And there's so many
The longer we
options
wait,
now.
there's a crisis that we may have to deal with. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump into that with Phyllis, and we're going to get basically let you know strategies and show you how you can employ these strategies to minimize this cost and this risk to you and your family. All right, join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.